We have people do all kinds of crazy things to get customers taken care of. And I know a lady was in the checkout line at Walmart and her debit card wouldn't work one day. And a lady that runs our debit card department got the cash out of her account for her with the customer's permission, of course, and drove that to Walmart and delivered it to the customer. I mean, we just do whatever it takes to get the customer taken care of. And I think that's unique in today's banking environment.
Gee, I'm not a miracle.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Commission meeting. Is Pastor Jeff Geske here? If not, then I'd ask Commissioner Escajeda to lead us in a prayer.
Let's bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you again for your presence. We hope that you will lead us and guide us as we make decisions for the community and for all the citizens it affects. We, in our prayers, hope you hold the victims and the families of the Oslo slayings in hand. Tragedies happen all over the world, and we're living in a violent world, and we should be grateful for the things that we have. And again, we pray for rain, dear Lord. We need it badly. Protect all of the workers for the city of Amarillo, our first responders, police, fire department, and keep us all on the straight and narrow. All these things we ask for in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Amarillo City Commission, held on the third floor at City Hall each Tuesday, usually at 3 p.m. The first item for business today is the agenda in the minutes. Attached is a copy of the minutes. And so we're seeking approval of those minutes of the City Commission meeting from the regularly held meeting of July 19, 2011.
Mayor, I would move for approval of the minutes as presented.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes with a 4-0 vote. Second item for business is ordinance number 7283. This is a second and final reading of an ordinance amending section 16-4-124 of the Amarillo Municipal Code regarding unauthorized persons in a taxi cab. This amendment was requested to authorize the carrying of non-paying persons in a taxi cab under certain listed conditions. Do we have any comments from the commission on this second reading? Any from the audience? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of ordinance number 7283.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item for business is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda, it's recommended that the following items be approved and that the city manager be authorized to execute all documents necessary for each transaction. A is the purchase of LED countdown pedestrian signal heads. B is the approval of water tank rehabilitation professional service contract. And C is the approval, amendment number 1, for additional inspection and testing services for Potter County Wellfield. Are there any items on the consent agenda that need to be removed for separate consideration by the commission? Are there any comments or any questions about these consent items from the commission? And from the audience? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as outlined here today.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes with a 4-0 vote. Okay, well, this concludes the regularly scheduled agenda for the City Commission meeting today. It's however customary at this time to allow citizens of our community with matters pertaining to city policies, programs, or services to speak to the Commission. And the floor is now open for those comments. Is there anyone who would like to make comments? It's Mr. Jewett, if you can come forward and give your name and address, please.
My name is Death Levi Jewett. I live at 54 Keystone Drive. I own Jack and Son Family Taxi, and I want to thank the police department for bringing all this to our attention 6 weeks ago, and everyone that's been involved, especially the city commission. Most of all, I thank the Lord for giving us the people to make this right. And one other thing I'd like to ask is, now am I legal to go ahead and haul people?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Now am I legal to go ahead and haul these customers because they keep calling my house?
I don't think there's any waiting period, is there? No.
Thank you. I'll call them this afternoon.
Okay.
God bless you.
Okay, any other comments from the floor? Mr. Feingold, please. Next. If you would mind, Alan, giving your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Alan Feingold. I live at 2601 North Grand Street, and I would like to give each of you a sheet from the Texas Department of State Health Services that is titled Selected Health Facts 2008 for Potter County. I think that this will illustrate well enough the request I'm making, so I'm not also going to give you the one from Randall County, but they're easy enough to obtain. If you do not object, I'll distribute the sheets. I'm going to start with our city manager.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Eads. Commissioner Hochul.
Sir.
Commissioner Escudero. Commissioner Sims. Thank you, sir. And, oh, what the heck?
I'll let the city secretary hold on.
There's a very long-standing problem that we have here that is not normally noticed. We tend to think of Amarillo as having very good outdoor air quality, which it does. But for reasons that are not known to me, there is a very high rate of mortality from chronic lower respiratory disease in this city. I don't know whether it is the result of some unusually high rate of smoking engaged in by the citizenry. I doubt it, but that's possible. But whatever it is, if you will take a look at the rate for mortality that is attributed to chronic lower respiratory disease, you'll see that it's approximately 100 for Potter County. And for the state as a whole, it's approximately 46. In other words, for this particular year in Potter County, the rate of mortality from this particular cause was more than double that for the state as a whole. Now you may wonder, what was it like for, say, the year 2007, 2006, and so on. I can tell you from my own examination of these health statistics going back to about the year 2000, the average for the rate of mortality from chronic lower respiratory disease is approximately double the state average for every year going back to the year 2000, and it may be even before that. Now, I have some conjectures about why this might be the case. One of the more remote conjectures has to do with the particular age group from what would now be about 70 to 85, which is the age group where you would expect the highest rate of mortality. And the fact that quite a few of the individuals in that age group were either infants or young children during the Depression era, when we have very serious dust storms. And it's conceivable to me that there was lung damage done, or lung tissue damage done, by those dust storms that would not manifest itself for many years. But again, that's merely a conjecture. Another possibility is that during the era of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when Amarillo had a lot of industry, we may have had a fairly large number of people in that group exposed to dust or fumes at their workplace. But for whatever reason, we have this extraordinarily high rate of mortality from that cause. And I would say, looking at the statistics, typically we have perhaps 50 to 55 premature deaths every year in Amarillo. It may actually exceed that. from that particular cause. Moreover, difficulty in breathing can be a contributory factor in heart attacks. Now, I've discussed this with the individual, Matt Richardson, who is head of public health. And he said, basically, it would require a very considerable study to pin this down. What I'm asking for you to do is to append about $10,000 to the public health budget for this year to do a search this year for a qualified epidemiologist who might be able to do a study on this, not in this budget year, but your next budget year. By qualified, I would say the fellow should at least have a PhD. Now, as to how much the study would cost, I expect that it would be around $120,000 to pay both for the fellow's salary and perhaps some extra computer time or clerical assistance. Perhaps it would be as much as $150,000. But when you consider, quite aside from any humanitarian matters, when you consider the cost of treating even one of these diseases, or I should say one case of this, it could run as high as a study that would review all of these cases back at least to the year 2000. An individual who is adept at this might be able to identify causes or contributing causes that would be preventable in the future, or may just give you a flat-out statement that this is all the result of things that happened to a certain segment of the population many years ago and is unlikely to be repeated. I don't know. I'm just asking you to add approximately $10,000 to the present public health budget and inform Mr. Richardson that he has the money to do a search for a qualified epidemiologist to do a full study of this, either in fiscal 2012 or fiscal 2013. Thank you.
Mr. Feingold,
Yes.
because of the rules about open meeting, I'm going to refer your comment to Dr. Eves to see if he'd like to answer.
Sure.
Mr. Michael, thank you. I know that you have been very diligent in every year reviewing these epidemiological reports from the Department of Health. And in fact, one of your comments in the past led me to the Health Department to have conversations with Ms. Vicki Covey and with Matt Richardson. And in some preliminary information that I have undertaken as a practicing OB-GYN and burgeoning statistician myself, I found some interesting information. And that was that, you can produce some interesting findings with statistics. For example, of course the audience does not have the opportunity to see this information, but one of the other interesting findings you find on here is that our Alzheimer's rate would apparently be double the state average. That the, one of the particularly troublesome sexually transmitted disease has more than double the rate here as other areas. And in researching that, what I discovered last year was that if you go out and actively seek to identify persons with chronic diseases and troubles in your area, you will find them. And if in other areas of the state you do not have the designated resources to go out and actually look, you won't. Seems simplistic and seems easy, but is actually very significant. The reason that we identify, for example, in sexually transmitted diseases such high rates is that Matt Turner and the Public Health Department here goes out in an active program to seek those people out, get them identified early, treated early, prevent spread and infertility that can result. And therefore our statistics seem high. On initial blush, the chronic disease issue that you talk about in terms of lung abnormalities, you can understand we take a lot of refugees. We screen a lot for TB that in many places in the state it is not screened, and therefore those people are tracked, those people are identified, and those are the kind of circumstances where you might increase your morbidity and mortality rate above other areas out in West Texas, for example, where they're really not looking for it at all. So I agree with you in some aspects of, why is our Alzheimer's rate double what it is someplace else? I suspect because in particular areas in town, we're doing a lot better job of screening for it than they are in a lot of areas. And so you are right. These are important indicators to demonstrate the areas that we need to be looking at. And certainly, you're right that we need to be plugging resources into those areas in order to see if these are bona fide or if indeed there's just some misrepresentation due to what we call sampling error.
Sure.
And so certainly I think this is something we will take forward, and we do this every year. And I appreciate the fact that you look at this and that you bring this to us and that you're scouring this every year. It's really very helpful to us. Thank you.
Okay, let me just give you another hint. If this were a cause of mortality with a very small number of people, a statistical anomaly could send it way off one year or another. But this is a relatively large number of people affected. Second, I've never heard of the health authority here doing anything in the way of screening for chronic lower respiratory disease as a cause of death. So I very much doubt that this is an artifact of our seeking out people who have serious lower respiratory problems. One further indicator, and it also has some bearing on the matter of refugees, is that we have a relatively low number of people with TB. It might be slightly higher than in the state as a whole, but I don't think it's, shall we say, significantly higher. It might even be slightly lower, as there are higher concentrations of refugees in, say, Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston. So I strongly urge you to take a good look at this, because this problem goes back, as I say, at least to the year 2000, and I suspect it goes back quite a bit more than that. And since you're talking about such a large number of people involved, at least relative to mortality, I strongly urge that you not delay any more than has already been the case in taking a look at this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Frontal. Any other comments from the floor? Yes, sir. You give your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name is Tom Shemp. I live at 4615 Van Winkle, and I'm here to ask the board for a little assistance. They passed an ordinance that doesn't allow myself as a renter owner, and I own several pieces of property, and I can't put a roof on it. And the reason I can't put a roof on it is because I'm not a licensed roofer. So I said, okay, what do I got to do to become a licensed roofer? So I asked, and then I began to check into the ordinances that the city requires, and they require bonds, and they require a permit. And I thought, well, I can afford the permit at $35. And I thought, well, I can put up a bond for $20,000. But then when they said I needed a liability bond for $600,000, I went, ouch. I checked with my insurance man. He says $5,000 to $6,000 a year. I said, ouch. And I thought, you know, I own this piece of property. I've got a piece of property here maybe worth $100,000, and it needs a new roof. And if it doesn't get a new roof, it's going to get leaks. Then I'm going to have a fire hazard. Then I'm going to have sheetrock to replace. Then I'm going to have insulation. Then I'm going to have wiring. And again, I said, ouch. And I thought, you know, maybe I don't have enough common sense to figure out if I hire an inspector and pay a permit, and he comes out and looks at my roof and he says, that roof passes. You did a good job. Well, what's the difference? So I said, okay, let's just see apples to apples. Let's see how these games play. I called a friend of mine that works in the real estate business, and I asked her to call 2 independent roofers and to find out what it would cost me to put on 16 squares of shingles. 16 squares. Now, I do have 2.5 years of college, and I know it's 3 bundles per square, and I know how to put them on the roof, and I know how to drive a nail. But I got 2 bids, and one, if I may pass them out to the commissioners, out of these 2 bids, I guess I'll just pass them down, sir. There's 2 of them here. Wes West Texas, and then the other one is Golden Spring. You can see what I've got there. They came up with 5,000 on one. Let's see, the one right here, West Texas. I didn't call them because I didn't want them to know that I was involved in it, because they usually know me. They came up with a bid of $5,912. And then they said if they put on to let me advertise and put a sign out in their front yard, they take off $532. I thought, my God, I'll build a memorial for that price. But I was stunned, and I couldn't believe my ears. So I thought, well, I'll read the other one. So a friend of mine faxed me the other one. And it was $4,245 for 16 squares. So I called a guy that lives in one of my rent houses that works for a roofing company. And I said, what would you charge me to lay 16 squares of shingles? And he said, I'm going to look at it. So I'm going to look at it. And he called me back and he said, I'll charge you $640 to take the old roof shingles off. I'll put on new felt paper, 4 rows. I'll lay 16 squares of shingles for you, replace the metal, come in and cost of the shingles, you buy the shingles. And the total bill came to $2,700.
With the shingles?
With the shingles. Now I thought, duh. I'm getting it from both ends. And I thought, why would this city require me or tell me how to handle my business? And if it's for safety, yes sir, I can understand it. If the roof can't take 4 layers of shingles and the city ordinance says that it can only have 2 or 3, I understand that. But if for any other reason, I can't see why the city has the right to tell me that I can't put shingles on a house, and God knows, God hopes, and Lady prayed for it, we're going to get rain. And if I don't get rain, I'm okay. But that's the kind of deal. Now, I guess I'm a two-faced Christian because I'm praying to God we get rain and hoping the hell we don't get it.
I think he understands right now.
I think he does. And so that's my point. I'm not trying to run the city. I don't tell Amarillo National Bank what to charge me for a service charge. I don't tell them what to charge me when I use my ATM card. I don't tell the doctor to charge me what he charges me. I take the word of the people that run their business. Now, if the city wants to charge me a license, I'll pay the license. But I don't think I should have to pay that bond. Because who's going to fall off the roof? Me. And let me assure you, fat men don't bounce. I will stay there. And I will take care of this business myself. And I will have my grandson help me. And I'll have this Spanish guy that lives in one of my houses help me. And then I'll have the inspector come out and look at it. And he can say, that's a good job. Or no, it didn't pass. I thank you.
Tom, I'd like to refer this to the commission, to the city manager, and maybe get a report back for us on next week's agenda, because I do think I'd like to understand what the compromises might be, how these things might be addressed, and yet how we might protect the people against shoddy work too. So, if we could.
And be glad to do so. And Mr. Shipp,
Yes, sir.
the liability bond, is that the workers' compensation bond? Is that in lieu of the workers' compensation policy?
Sir, I picked up this, I just got this from the office of code enforcement. I'm sorry, they changed the name on that to building safety. I didn't understand that either, but I thought code enforcement worked, but when they changed it to building safety, they had to paint the trucks and change the stationery. But that's okay. That's what they gave me. And so all I'm saying is that there's got to be a compromise here. I don't want somebody coming in and putting a shoddy roof on my neighbor's house and then leaving, and then we have a hailstorm in our roof and he leaks and nobody can stand good for it. I don't want that. But if I own the property and I'm willing to do part of the work, I think I ought to have the right to do it. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Very informative. Okay, any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir. If you give your name and address to me.
Yes, sir. My name is Shannon Williams. I live at 4615 Matador Trail. I'm simply here as a concerned parent today. I know that the matter of the fast pitch softball fields has been brought to this commission in the past. I just want to readdress that. My daughter does play. She plays both for high school. I know approximately 4 years ago, Parks and Recreation put it in their budget or their multi-year, multi-phase plan to build a softball facility for the girls. It was part of a, as I said, a multi-phase plan. There was also some baseball fields to be built, I believe, maybe the tennis courts. Every phase, every project of that multi-phase plan has been completed with the exception of the fields for these young ladies. My daughter is now a sophomore. Most likely by the time these fields, if they do get built, she'll be out of that field. But I've got to witness what this sport does. It is a fast-growing sport. We have a lot of young ladies in this community participating in it. I spend about every weekend out of town going to tournaments in, whether it's Lubbock, Abilene, Oklahoma City, everywhere else but here, because we don't have the facilities here to host a tournament. The property was purchased. The property is sitting there, to my understanding. Again, I apologize, I'm just a concerned citizen. I don't have all the exact data or numbers. I know that in previous meetings they presented what economic impact this will have, allowing us to present tournaments in Amarillo, bring in Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma teams. There are no fields here that are regulation. If we want to have a tournament here, we have to wait till after midnight when the adult league softball teams are done, go out there and drive T-post into a field and put an orange construction fence up to make a regulation distance, change where the pitching mound is, and it's just, we can't draw tournaments that way. So when those fields weren't built, there was a Band-Aid put on. They allowed us to use the 2 fields at Thompson Park. Those were previous adult softball fields. They cut down the fence, brought it in to an appropriate distance. The field was, I think, tilled. It doesn't work for what the young ladies need. They built a perfectly good field for the boys' baseball out of Rick Klein. They came in later, added lights. The property, I believe, that the city owns beside that, where this softball facility was supposed to be, is out there waiting. These young ladies, I've seen the character development that this has. It's growing huge. You know, several years ago, I don't know how many girls we had in it. Today, 700, 800. It's growing double digits every year, I think. It starts at 6, and we have 6 and under divisions up to 18 and under. All of our girls that play high school ball, they play this in off season. I spend a lot of money going out of town on tournaments. I don't know the exact impact on it, but I know that we go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We eat meals in those towns. We buy gasoline in those towns. We pay fees in those towns for those tournaments. I think it's time to get some tournaments coming here and just have a place for the girls to play on a regular basis. I almost feel, I hate to throw this word out, but I feel that I have 3 daughters, so I feel almost that the young ladies are being discriminated against. They see these nice facilities that they built out there, the Rick Klein facilities, and we go out and we have 2 fields. I spoke with the Band-Aid, they gave us 2 fields at Thompson Park. There's no restroom facilities. They just recently put some in, but they've been closed down. We have to walk approximately 250 yards out to the community restroom that's used for all of Thompson Park, for everyone, over by the lake. There's no concession stand facilities. And again, the fields are not regulation for what we need. I just ask that the commission readdress that last step in that Parks and Recreation phase and give these young ladies what they deserve. And like I said, we have all, I believe they presented the actual numbers to the commission before. As far as,
to be fair, we saw that last week from a group that came, and we received a packet this week.
Okay.
First I've seen it.
Okay.
Well,
I apologize. I'm not sure how the Parks and Recreation multi-phase plan works. I'm almost concerned that it may come to a deadline or a drop dead where that, if it's not completed by a certain time, it's not going to happen, period. Like I said, the land is sitting there, it was put in there, every other phase has been completed, so I just like to see that final phase, and if there's anything else or that the commission needs from, as far as numbers and statistics or economic impact, or how many girls are playing, or how many girls this affects, or anything like that, I'll be glad to facilitate that and get those numbers. I don't know what information the commission needs to help push this forward or to make it a priority, I guess, to push with Parks and Rec. I see a lot of emphasis on adult league and a lot of the softball fields that they get, and of course boys. I want the boys to have the best baseball facilities too. You know, I go see those games and I love it, and I love that they have a great facility to play in. I just want to see the same thing for the girls.
We appreciate your comments, Mr. Lynn.
Okay, and thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments for the commission?
I'm Jimmy Presley Hammond, where I live at...
I can barely hear you, sir.
Dry. I'm Jimmy Presley Hammond, where I live at 1514 South Pierce. And I'd like to read a small article that was in the paper.
Actually, I get the paper and I read it on a regular basis. Okay. I would ask you if it's something you could relate in your own terms.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay, well, it tells me here in the paper how the city of Las Vegas is having a hard time on that they're having a hard time with the tourists because
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't understand you. I'll make it clear. You said they're having trouble with what?
With their tourism, because it's the worst recession in decades.
Aren't we glad we aren't in Las Vegas?
Well, I'm thinking, well, we are. Just step outside. It's just as hot out there as it is in Las Vegas, let me tell you. What I was thinking was, wow, there in Las Vegas, there on Main Street, they have all them casinos, and they're having trouble with their tourism. So we get these buildings that y'all won't build downtown. What's to guarantee us from making a profit? Well, they can't make a profit on stuff that's already built. I don't see how.
I have trouble equating us to Las Vegas again, Jim.
Okay, well, let me put it another way. Well, I don't see, people come there from all over the world for the attractions that they have. My opinion, I don't think people are going to come from all over the world here for a ball field.
I think one of those buildings probably more than we're considering the whole darn downtown. So
Right.
I don't know if I'd equate any part of Las Vegas with Amarillo. You haven't convinced me of a darn thing yet.
I'm going to keep trying.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
do that. All right.
Get the shoulder over.
There you go.
Mr. Norris, is it possible for another commissioner to comment on that after I've commented?
If he comments directly to the citizen, y'all don't deliberate between yourselves. There's a statement of fact or law.
Can I comment regarding the previous speaker at this point?
If the mayor will allow.
If you're going to comment directly to him, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson, would you come back up to the podium? Oh, excuse
previous
me.
speaker.
I'm sorry, the previous one, excuse me.
You know, just to keep things in perspective, and I agree with you, I think those are services we definitely need. But just to understand that on a routine basis, we are also fielding concerns regarding slow pitch, school parks that are in bad need of handicap accessible recreational equipment. Folks concerned about an aquatic center and the needs of kids have been trying to do that for years. Other parks that need upgrades, splash pads. If you look at the folks that are driving our recreational programs, baseball, softball, soccer. So we've got a long list of recreational needs, and we're trying to balance all those. So just to let you know, we're looking at that, but we have got the second lowest tax rate in the state of Texas for comparable cities, and we aim to keep it that way. But we will continue to entertain the kind of programs that you're talking about. We just have a lot of folks with a lot of different needs.
I understand that, and I've evaluated that as well, and that's part of the background on this is, if you look at all these sports and all these things, are there regulation fields for soccer? Yes. Is there regulation fields for baseball? Yes. Is there regulation fields for sport A, sport B? The tennis courts are built, everything's out there. 4 years ago when this plan was put in effect, it was a need, it was a necessary. The Parks and Rec agreed that it was a necessary addition to our community. And I'm just concerned of what has changed, or have other needs come in, and I agree, if other needs come in and they're more important, I understand prioritizing. I understand there's only so much pie, and it can only be cut so many ways. It's still the same amount of pie. But that's I guess what I would like to be looked into. Is it was a concern 4 years ago. It was agreed upon. The land is purchased. It's there. I just don't know what the missing piece is as far as why it got put on the chopping block or set aside. There is a lot of other sports, and I love seeing those programs. I have my own children and children I foster that utilize Parks and Rec in every aspect. I think it's great. I love them using those facilities and not doing the crazy, stupid things. So any of these programs that we can keep going and put emphasis on, I think our whole community benefits. So, but I do appreciate that it's been looked at. So, thank you.
Any other comments from any other citizens? Sir, if you give your name and your address, please.
Joe Burrow at 1302 Callahan. I just want to comment to what he said earlier about that there's money going out to different places. Right now, the men's have a total of 13 fields, and you guys are putting money into that one more than you're putting into other, for like the kids. I know they're doing the soccer, which is great. There's plenty of places where they're doing the soccer. Out at Southwest, there's a bunch of fields for soccer. But like for the men's, you guys are upgrading the fields over there, getting those fields fixed. Basically, all it is we call it beer league, because it is just something that where guys go out there and they're able to drink and play ball, have fights. It happens every weekend. And you guys can't say no, because it does. It's called out there a lot. There was 3 years ago that we had a tournament out at Southwest for the girls, and right across where the skate park's at the other field, there was a car that drove by that shot, and all you see was a bunch of girls hit the ground real quick, where somebody shot a gun. Did the cops come out there? Yes, they did, eventually. But that's just one of the concerns that we have, is that we want to make sure our girls are more protected, and where they're not an environment where there is right now in Southwest. Because it is kind of dangerous to be out there at night. It's a good park, but it's not safe. That's it.
Any other comments from the visitors? Okay. If not, we thank you for being here today, participating in the meeting, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.